back to my YouTube channel. I know it's been a while since I posted a video or a tutorial. Sometimes life happens, you need to take a little break, but we are back and I'm so excited. My name is Ophelia. If you don't know who I am a master brow artist and educator, and I started this channel to really help you ladies grow your brow business and learn some tips and tricks on brow lamination and tinting. So today I'm going to be going over a full tutorial on how I do my brow lamination, tinting, and shaping. I'm also going to be linking all of the products that I use down below for you ladies. So if this is something that you guys are interested in, then keep on watching. This is actually really special to me because today we're actually going to be using some of my very own products that I had in the past tutorials. I had a few people asking me questions, but I couldn't necessarily say anything yet. But now I'm able to finally come out and tell you guys. So yes, I'm coming out with my own product line. We are just starting off with 4 products to begin with, but we are going to be using some of those products today for my brow lamination, for tinting, and for mapping. So stay tuned. I'm super excited for you guys to see that as well. All right, my loves, let's get started. So this is my beautiful model. She already has very nice full brows, as you can see. We will be doing a brow lamination and tint on her for today. So one thing that I always like to analyze with my models clients, whoever you're working on, is first of all, you want to see how thick her natural hair is. So as you can see, it may appear from the outside that she has a lot of hair, or some beginners might say it's thick, but in reality, she actually has a lot of hair. But if you look at the hair diameter, it's actually very fine. So she is naturally going to laminate a lot faster. And we are going to be using Bronsun. So if you look at the times for Bronsun for fine hair, it's usually anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes on average. And we're going to be applying that lamination lotion from the roots to the tips, and we're going to be applying pressure on there to really lay them flat for that first few minutes. And you guys, I always tell my students this, make sure that you remember the PPs because it's funny and easy to remember. So PP just usually means, it means pressure and it means product. So you want to make sure you're applying enough pressure and you want to make sure that you're applying enough product on the brows for them to actually laminate. I often see a lot of beginner eye brow artists, they're not applying enough product or they're using the wrong formulation and they end up not getting that super sleek, straight brow. So remember the 2 P's and you will be okay. All right, so we applied the products, we applied a little bit of pressure, and we just kind of laid them down in that pattern. And I always say, you never want to brush all the hairs up because that's naturally going to create pushback, make it harder for the brows to naturally laminate. So what you're going to want to do is just follow the hair pattern. So as you can see, I am not pushing all the hairs all the way up. We don't want that. All right, so we let the lamination lotion sit for about a minute or 2, and now the hairs are slightly relaxed, and I'm going to go back in with a little micro brush, and I'm going to follow that hair pattern. As you can see, I am going in a C curve motion as I'm brushing the hairs. I am not going in and pushing them all the way up. So right now what I'm doing is I'm creating the shape that I essentially want to lay the hairs in. All right, now once I have that shape that I want, I'm going to go in with a Q-tip or you can use a little lip wand. And now I'm going to be applying pressure in a whipping motion to really train that hair to stay in that shape that I want and allow the hairs to really lay flat. And as you can see, I'm using a good amount of product, and this is really what's going to guarantee those results. And I always tell all my students too that it's good to use the timer as a time frame for that specific hair type, but essentially you really want to train your eyes to see when the hairs are done. Okay, so now we wiped off step 1 and we're going to put in step 2 and the same thing, pressure and product. For step 2, I'll let it sit for a little bit and then I will still do that same whipping motion to really train those hairs even more. And once I see that the brows are done laminating, I'm going to remove step 2 with a wet cotton round. You want to make sure that you are removing all of the product and that the brows do not continue to process. All right, and now we're gonna get into the fun part. We're gonna start mapping her eyebrows using my very own mapping string. You guys, I am so excited about this mapping string. It is so pigmented, and I love that the string is actually very thin, so you get super crisp, clean lines, as you can see in this video. All right, so now we're gonna begin by mapping the middle of her face and where her brows are going to begin. And for these lines particularly, this is just to measure how thick I really want to make the brows. Now I create a line horizontally across her face, which is going to create that line that tells me where that arch is going to essentially stop. And it just allows me to make sure that both brows are on the same plane. And now I'm going to create that top line. Now, when I am mapping my client's eyebrows and after I laminate, I always go based off the thickness of these first few hairs in the front because that's normally what your clients are used to. And you definitely don't want to scare them away. You always want to enhance what your client naturally has, right? Now we're going to create that arch line going downward, and depending on how eccentric the client wants the brows, but I usually just enhance what they naturally have. I don't like to do anything too crazy or out of what they naturally have, just because this is an enhancement. It's not really like permanent makeup where you can completely shave off the brow. Well, not completely shave off the brow, but take off a little bit of the ends or anything like that. Because once that tint stain goes away, you are left with, what they naturally have, and you don't want to be left with one brow that's thicker than the other. And now I'm just using the mapping string to kind of just create that line that's going to connect from the bottom to the ends. And I want you to guys take a look at how I'm doing it and just kind of practice that on your own time. And again, there are a million different type of mapping techniques. I just feel like this is the one that just really works for me. Another good tip is when you're reaching that area of the bone by the nose, that area can be a little tough to work with. So I push inward to really get that nice crisp line. And as you can see, this mapping string is so pigmented. I only used one piece of string. I did not have to go in and grab another piece of string. I just works throughout the whole mapping process. But yeah, this is how I map my eyebrows. And as you can see, I always like to make sure I take a look and both of the brows are even. And I also show my client to make sure that she is happy with the shape before we begin tinting. And again, you guys, honestly, mapping is just one of those things that is actually a lot harder than what people realize it to be. And you need it to be super intentional because you need to know what each line usually stands for. I can make another video that goes a little bit more in depth with mapping just in general, but this is just a general Lamy and Tint tutorial. So if you guys want to know what each line usually means and how to be super intentional with your mapping technique, make sure you comment down below and let me know. All right, so now we have finished mapping, and what I like to do is brush the hairs upward in the same direction that we were doing. We were doing the whipping motion with the lamination. And now we're going to be using my very own scissors that I designed specifically to get these super crisp lines, you guys. I often found really hard to find very thin scissors that actually went underneath the hairs and gave you such crisp lines when you are trimming the eyebrows. So as you can see, I get pretty close to that line, and that's why it's important to make sure your mapping lines are very thin and very clean. And I'm just going underneath the hair and I'm just sliding underneath with my scissors and trimming as close to that line as possible. All right, and today we are going to be using the Brown Daddy stains. I personally love these because they are PPD free and they are just great for leaving a long-lasting stain, especially for those oily skin clients. It is the best. I'm going to be using a black tint today, and I know a lot of people are scared to use the black tint,
but it doesn't have to be intimidating. If you're a beginner, maybe try to avoid using it at first until you get the technique down. But it really does complement her undertone, and it also complements her hair color. Plus, she needs a little bit more pigment, especially underneath, to really create a cohesive brow look, which is why I picked the black pigment. All right, and we're going to go in with a very thin layer of tint at first, okay? So do not pack your brush with a lot of pigment, because especially that first layer, we are going to be creating that ombre effect, right? So when you're doing the ombre effect, you want to make sure that you are just using very little product so that you can diffuse it out to the front and it won't be too harsh, especially in the front. And as you can see, I'm literally just tapping and slowly building up that product. And yes, we are using another one of my products. We are using my tinting brush. So I wanted to make sure that these brushes had a very, very fine, sharp tip, especially at the ends, so that you can see I can go in and create those really sharp, crisp lines when I'm tinting. All right, and now I'm slowly building up that product. When I get to the ends, that is when I grab a little bit more color and I kind of just pack it in towards the ends. As you can see, I'm just doing very soft tapping motions. I tap and drag, but with this specific formula by Brow Daddy, I noticed it is a little bit more of a jelly formula. Not jelly, but it's like a gel kind of formula. I don't know how to explain it. You guys are gonna have to try these out. But especially towards the ends of the brows, if you don't want any harsh lines, or you don't want it to really stick to the skin in certain areas so that it comes out blotchy, you're gonna want to build that product up and make sure it's essentially really packed in there, especially towards the ends, and you're really diffusing it. It's kind of like you're painting a brow on a piece of paper. You want to make sure that everything is super diffused, super blended, and if you see anything that looks off-putting, make sure that you fix it, because when you wipe it off, you're gonna see it.
Alright guys, so I'm just gonna stop this video really quickly right in the middle. I'm sorry, we're gonna get right back to this tutorial, but I wanted to let you guys know, if you guys are interested in doing any one-on-one classes, or if you're interested in anything that goes a little bit more in depth on the science, the nitty-gritty, every little detail that you probably think of, or you need a little bit more hands-on practice, I do host one-on-one classes, and I also have an online course. I will also link that right down below for you ladies. Let's get back into the video.
All right, so once you are done with the tinting, your brows should look like this. Granted, this is how the brows look before I even remove the tint, okay? So this is what it should look like. It should look very diffused in the front and very packed in pigment towards the end of. All right, so I cleaned up and waxed her eyebrows off camera, and now I'm going in with my tweezers. I really like these tweezers because they're very pointy and they really just grab every little hair, even the stubborn ones. So I'm just finishing up and I'm just going in and tweezing the rest of the hairs that the wax might have not grabbed. Alright, and now for one of the final steps. I absolutely love this product. This is the Bronsun Color Fixing Lotion. It is just a cream, and essentially it just helps with not removing too much product. Well, it removes the product, but very gently. So personally, I don't love using water to remove tin. I just feel like it removes it a little too much. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't love it. So I love this cream sort of consistency. I feel like it just removes it perfectly and it leaves the stain still very vibrant. So I'm just going in with a spoolie to kind of break up those dry little patches, and I'm going in with my cotton round and I'm going to be wiping off the tint. And as you can see, it just removes it so beautifully. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going in with step 3 of the Bronsun lotion. Yeah, the step 3, it's not a lotion, but it's a serum. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be laying those hairs back down, and I'm going to be brushing them into place with that step 3 to help nourish and hydrate those hairs, especially after a lamination, because the hairs can sometimes feel a little bit dry. And I'm just going to go back in with my scissors and just make sure that those hairs are just laying within the confinement of that tint shape that we originally created. Right, and now we're going to be using my very own concealer palette. I worked so hard formulating these colors for you guys, and the formula itself, it's so creamy. It's not super full coverage, so you can just blend it like butter. I cannot wait for you guys to try these out. So we're going to be using one of my flat brushes and the concealer. I mixed these two colors just to give her a nice highlight that's going to fit well with her skin. All right, and now we're going to go in with very light pressure using the tip of it. So I created this flat brush to have a nice tip at the end, but I wanted the bristles to be fluffy enough so that you can blend out that color. So as you can see in this video, I'm going in with just enough product with a very light hand, and I'm just carving out the bottoms very slowly. Take your time, you guys. Make sure that, especially in the beginning, you're really taking your time out to make sure everything's perfect and you're perfecting that technique before you go in and try to do things a little bit faster. And one thing that I've started doing that I absolutely really love that I feel like it just gives that cherry on top and clients just love it. They come in and they're truly getting their brows done. I go over the tops just slightly with the concealer, just very softly, and I just make sure that blends up at the top to remove any redness and to really carve out that shape. And it just leaves you with the crispest, nicest brows, and all of my clients love this, so I highly recommend that you go in and that you blend in the concealer as you can see. And all right, you guys, these are the final results. I am in love with her eyebrows. Let me know what you guys think.
All right, you guys, and that concludes the end of the video. I hope you guys loved the tutorial. It was super, super fun making it. Make sure you guys follow Arch Brows Pro, and I'm going to link the Instagram right down below. You guys, it is literally launching June 4th. I am so excited. And until next time, see you guys next week.